A fine station building stands in the middle of the large market town of Shrewsbury, the county town of Shropshire, home to a population today of 72,000. Thomas Mainwaring Penson was responsible for the design of the station building, built in a Tudor style to match some of the old style buildings around the town. Between 1899 and 1903, a third story was excavated, not on top, but unusually underneath the original building. Today the station consists of 3 through platform roads and 2 south-facing bays, managed by the main train operating company that calls at the station, Transport for Wales. One of TfW's premier local haulage services from Holyhead arrives on platform 4. The consist is of a DVT or driver van trailer at the front, with 4 Mark IV coaches in the middle, and at the back of the train, operating on the push-pull principle, a Class 67. We shall be riding aboard this local haulage service over one of England and Wales's most scenic main line, the Welsh Marches. It runs in a southerly direction before joining the South Wales main line at Newport, and as a bonus we shall be continuing to where the train terminates at Cardiff Central. The distance is 107 miles. Unbeknown to many of the travelling public is that Britain's longest river, the River Severn, passes beneath the platforms. Standing in the centre of a triangular junction with the route to Wolverhampton is the Severn Bridge Junction signal box, an LNWR box dating from around 1902. It is today the largest operational mechanical signal box in the world, housing over 180 levers, although many of them are out of use. The box has Grade 2 listed status and underwent an extensive heritage renovation carried out by Network Rail between 2020 and 2021. This is English Bridge Junction, the third side of the triangular layout with the Wolverhampton line, which is rarely used these days. The junction is followed by Coleham Viaduct. To our right is Shrewsbury's traction maintenance depot, where we can see a few former Class 37 diesel locomotives being stored here. Commissioned in 2008, the 4 former Class 37s were reclassified as Class 97s for testing on the ERTMS or European Rail Traffic Management System project on the Cambrian coastline. Once diverging to the left underneath the redundant arch was the Severn Valley Railway to Kidderminster. Opened in February 1862, it closed in January 1970 and is today one of the most famous heritage lines in the country. This is Sutton Bridge Junction, an existing junction with the Cambrian coastline. The railway was built by many small independent railway companies. This one opened in 1861, reaching the west coast 2 years later. In 1865, all these small companies merged to become just one, the Cambrian Railways. From then onwards, the company owned over 230 miles of track within most of Mid Wales. Today, this is the only rail line into Mid Wales, and Transport for Wales provides a 2-hourly service to both Aberystwyth and Pwllheli, with trains splitting at Machynlleth. On our left is Montgomery Waters Meadow Stadium, home of Shrewsbury Town's football club. Pass under the A5 Shrewsbury bypass. The Welsh Marches line exists today from the amalgamation of 3 railway companies, the Pontypool, Cwmbran and Newport, the Newport, Abergavenny and Hereford, and the Shrewsbury and Hereford railways, the latter is which we are on now. The intention was to form a through route with other pre-existing lines from the manufacturing districts in the northwest of England to mining districts in South Wales and Bristol. Although the broad gauge had been suggested by the Great Western Railway, it was in fact laid with standard gauge, mainly under the London and North Western Railway's control. The Shrewsbury and Hereford was opened in 2 stages. Stage 1 opened from Shrewsbury to Ludlow on the 21st of April 1852. In 1862 the line became jointly leased between the LNWR and GWR, and as the mineral traffic developed in 1886, concurrent with the opening of the Severn Tunnel, the Welsh Marches line became an important main line. The first of the closed stations on our route, Condover, opening with the line in 1852. The local passenger and goods traffic along the Welsh Marches gradually disappeared during the mid-1950s, and subsequently many of the stations were closed. Condover, along with many more to come, closed on June the 9th, 1958. signal box at Dorrington still stands here, controlling another block section with its lower quadrant semaphore signals. This was another 1958 closure. Here the line passes under the A49, the railway's main competition. A long road which passes through the Welsh Marches, it begins at Ross-on-Wye, finishing at Warrington in the north. Incidentally, the name Welsh Marches defines an area along the border between England and Wales. The precise meaning of the term has varied at different periods. The term was first used within the Middle Ages to denote the marches between the two countries. But in modern times, the marches are often used to describe those English counties which lie along the border, particularly Shropshire and Herefordshire, and some of those adjoining Wales. It's the middle of November and there isn't a cloud in the sky, so the sun can be quite blinding in some shots. We pass the site of Lieberwood Station. The small village has only got a population of 231, not a lot to support a railway. It doesn't look it, but the railway has been continuously climbing at a rate of 1 in 100 for nearly 13 miles to the summit of the line just south of Church Stretton. Quite a task for those early steam railway pioneers of the day. Pass an 80-mile-an-hour speed sign with the letters MU above it, meaning multiple units. 90 is the maximum line speed. A small halt was established here next to the bridge called All Stretton Halt, opened jointly by the GWR and LMS in 1936 and closed in 1958. We are running directly into the sun on the approach to Church Stretton. The present-day station was moved to the current site in 1914 and new station buildings were erected, but these were demolished in 1970, the station becoming unstaffed 3 years earlier. We have now reached the summit of the Shrewsbury and Hereford at 630 feet above sea level. Little Stretton Halt was another GWR and LMS built halt, opening in 1935 and closing at the same time as the others. Now the line descends for the next 2 miles at 1 in 112 before it becomes a grueling 1 in 92 and finally to 1 in 100 once more. The signal box wasn't built on this site until 1872 and is therefore one of the oldest signal boxes in the UK still in use. The group of trees to our left have been grown on a former railway. This was Marsh Farm Junction, where the Wenlock, Craven Arms and Lightmoor Extension Railway converged. The railway opened in 1867 from the town of Much Wenlock, and for most of its working life it was worked by the GWR and later to the western region of British Railways. The line met the already existing Much Wenlock and Severn Junction Railway, which in turn became the Wellington to Craven Arms Railway. Passenger services plied the line until 1951, while as always freight continued for another few more years. This is signal CA28, the distance signal for Craven Arms. The signal can only display a green or a yellow. In this case, the latter is displaying caution. Wistanstow Halt was a 1934 addition and a 1956 subtraction. Here was where another junction was located, called Stretford Bridge. The Bishop's Castle Railway opened in 1865, following the River Onny for much of its length, and intended to be extended to Montgomery as part of a proposed trunk line to Porthdinllaen, but the scheme came to nothing. In the end, the railway reached Lytham Heath, where reversal was required to continue to Bishop's Castle. For many decades, the railway struggled to stay in business, even when the company went into receivership. The GWR had no interests in the line, the final nail in the coffin being the increase in car ownership and bus competition. The line barely lived a century, closing in April 1935 after a lifespan of just 70 years. We are now approaching Craven Arms, still surrounded by a lot of railway paraphernalia, including the semaphore signals, goods lines and of course the signal box. Surprisingly, today's signal box replaced the original back in 2000. The original all-wooden one was replaced and enlarged by a clad steel frame structure, with the old box being removed from within. Until 1974, the station at Craven Arms had been called Craven Arms and Stokesay. Signalling and track alterations took place at the station during October 2018. Before then, Platform 1 was signalled for bidirectional movements for up and down trains to access the Heart of Wales line, but now all of these up trains leave exclusively from Platform 2. The Heart of Wales line now turns 90 degrees to the west. The first section was built by the Knighton Railway in 1861, before over time it was extended to meet up with the Vale Towie Railway near Llandovery. Today the single line runs for 90 miles to Llanelli on the South Wales coast. The service pattern over the branch includes 4 trains a day each way between Shrewsbury and Swansea. There's an obvious peak here. A 1 in 100 climb follows a fall of the same value to just before Onenbury. Crossing the River Onny and over the level crossing where Onenbury station once stood. This is Bromfield. The signal box is scheduled for closure at some point in the future when a re-signalling scheme is implemented. The closed station stands alongside the Ludlow racecourse. The area within the racing tracks is entirely occupied by the Ludlow Golf Course, one of the oldest golf clubs and courses in Shropshire, founded back in 1889. Pass back under the A49, the Ludlow bypass. It's hard to find any clues of Clee Hill Junction, a goods-only line which ran from Titterston-Clee Hill, opening in 1864. The route ran up the hill via the towns of Middleton and Bitterley to a marshalling yard at Titterston. Rope haulage was used, one of narrow and one of standard gauge, used to carry the stone from the quarries on Clee Hill to the yard. Before the goods line closed in 1962, the standard gauge incline was one of the longest in Britain. Ludlow Station, followed by the 134-yard long Ludlow Tunnel. The town of Ludlow sits on the confluences of two rivers, the Teme and the Corve. The oldest part of the town is the medieval walled town, dating right back to the 11th century after the Norman conquest. Nearly 500 buildings within the town are listed, and Ludlow warrants a healthy population today of 10,000. We are now on section 2 of the Shrewsbury and Hereford Railway. Ludlow was the terminus of the line on the 21st of April 1852. A year and a half later, the railway company was fully opened between Shrewsbury and Hereford. The date was the 6th of December 1853. Although the northern section of the line was doubled, this part was single, and the implementation of the second track wasn't laid for another 40 years. Now we cross the A49. Cross the River Teme. The river rises in mid-Wales south of Newtown and flows southeast, roughly following the border of Wales and England before joining the River Severn south of Worcester. The river is also crossed by a number of historical bridges, including the one at Tenbury Wells, built by Thomas Telford in 1795, and by the Elan Aqueduct. Ashford Bowdler is probably the shortest-lived station on our journey today. It was opened in 1854, a year after the line. It can't have been well used, as it closed within the year. Notice the home signal. It has a white board attached to it so it can stand out and be easily seen by train drivers. Here at Wooferton, the Tenbury Railway of 1861 came in from the east, built independently, known as the Tenbury and Bewdley, which continued on to Bewdley in 1864. The railway was given the sobriquet as the Wyre Forest Line, or simply the Tenbury Railway. Never commercially successful, decline in the line started to show by the 1950s, with the inevitable bus competition. closure of the line fell during its centenary year, 1961. The station at Wufferton, which lasted longer than most, also closed in that year. We're now in Herefordshire and past the one-time station at Berrington and Eye. The station used to serve the villages of Eye, Moreton and Luston, as well as Berrington Hall, a neo-classical country house built for Thomas Harley between 1778 and 1781. The National Trust since 1957 has taken care of the property and the surrounding gardens. At 90 miles an hour, our train is fast approaching the town of Leominster, quite a railway hub back in the day. After passing over the River Lug, the Leominster and Kingdon Railway branched off to the west just here. It had opened in 1857 and closed in 1964. A 1-mile section of this line is preserved at the former Titterley Junction station. Just a mile south of Leominster station was where the 24.5-mile long line to Worcester diverged. The Worcester, Bromyard and Leominster Railway had a checkered history. It had taken 36 years to build this line, opening in 4 sections between 1861 and 1897. The GWR had acquired the line in 1888 and completed the rest of the route from Bromyard. Despite it being locally popular, the WBLR rarely made a profit and went into liquidation, and with the great usage of motor buses and cars after the Second World War, the line eventually closed in stages. Leominster to Bromyard in 1952 and Bromyard to Worcester in 1964. The two lines now separate as we approach the Dinmore tunnels. Remember, when this line was built south of Ludlow, it was of a single track nature. The second bore wasn't added until the LNWR and GWR doubled the line in 1893. The tunnels are both 1,054 yards in length and have a maximum speed limit of 80 miles an hour. Beyond the tunnel and the road bridge is the station building of Dinmore. Up and down lines rejoin after their separate deviations. Here we cross the River Lug, a tributary of the River Arrow. It flows for 63 miles near its source at Llangunllo to where it enters the Arrow at Morderford. Its name comes from a Welsh root meaning bright stream. Marden Church appears in the background. Bolton-on-Lug was once deemed Britain's most strangest station, because the station building was hollowed out from two enormous oak trees called Adam and Eve. It was believed in a storm that Adam was blown down, while Eve lost its top and branches. For many months after the line was open, the oak tree became the residence and office for the station master, before it became a lamp room in 1869 and then a stable for a donkey. The bowl was still alive in 1868 when a few green twigs started to grow on the south side. More conventional facilities were required in later history, and the old oak tree has consequently disappeared, but without a shadow of a doubt this is probably one of the best railway station stories in the history of Britain's railways. The Cotswold line converges at Shellett Junction. The 86.5 mile long line starts at Oxford and runs via Malvern, Worcester and Evesham. It was opened in 1861 by the Worcester and Hereford Railway, who was eventually purchased by the West Midlands Railway and latterly the GWR in 1863. Today, West Midlands trains from Birmingham New Street use the route on an hourly basis, while the 21st Century Great Western Railway TOC have 5 trains a day bound for London Paddington. In Hereford there was originally 3 stations: Moorfields, Barton and Barrs Court. The latter was the terminus of our line on the 6th of December 1853. Barton station had laid off to the west of the city, the northern terminus of the Newport, Abergavenny and Hereford Railway, the line we shall soon travel over. With the arrival of the S&H, it was decided one large joint station be built to accommodate all services, including the broad gauge trains from the Hereford, Ross and Gloucester and the Midland Railway sponsored Hereford, Hay and Brecon Railways. Today, Hereford Station has 3 through lines and 1 bay. In Platform 3 is a 5-car Class 802 bi-mode multiple unit on a GWR service forming the 1518 to London Paddington.
Cwmbran and Newport and Cardiff Central, Captions
a fine Victorian Gothic building welcoming the intending traveller to the station, designed by R.E. Johnson for the opening of the Shrewsbury and Hereford. Notice the exceptionally large signal box. Coming into view on our right is the former diesel refuelling sidings, now out of use. The siding to our right is used to turn back the IETs or DMU sets. Our train crosses the River Wye, the fourth longest in the country, at 155 miles. The Hereford, Ross and Gloucester continued straight ahead at Rotherwar's Junction. Built with Isambard Kingdom Brunel's 7-foot broad gauge, the line opened in 1855 and amalgamated with the GWR in 1862. In 1869 the broad gauge was abolished and remained as a 4-foot 8.5-inch gauge railway until the line closed on the 2nd of November 1964. The yellow mileposts that were measured from Shrewsbury are now measured from here to Newport. That's the sound of the driver's vigilance device. If our driver doesn't lift their foot off the dead man's pedal to cancel the sound within the next 3 to 5 seconds, the brakes will be applied automatically. We are now on the former Newport, Abergavenny and Hereford Railway, which was opened a few weeks after the Shrewsbury and Hereford, the 2nd of January 1854. As the name implies, the company was formed to connect with all of these named places. However, the southern section of the route was denied. Therefore, the NAHR had to use the Monmouthshire Railways line between Pontypool and Newport. From the outset, the company was worked by the London and North Western Railway, but it had hoped to exploit the line to form a network in South Wales, but that aspiration was not fully realised, and so the NAHR merged with the West Midland Railway in 1860, who in turn was then purchased by the GWR. The sun is at its lowest for the next few shots as the train naturally heads towards the south. This was Tram Inn. The former wayside station's name is a reminder of the old horse-drawn tramway from Hereford to Abergavenny, which dated back to 1829. The adjacent pub was called Tram Inn, and the station took that name until its closure in 1958. Serving the small village of Kilpeck, this was St Devereux Station. The sunlight is blinding, especially to our driver, but we can just make out a third track to our right. This is the Pontrilas up Goods Loop. And this was Pontrilas Station. The up Goods Loop line is where another railway branched away from us. The Golden Valley Railway Company constructed the line to Hay-on-Wye, following the valley of the River Dore, opening between 1881 and 1889. The company had a broken promise to many passengers, stating that the line would become a long-distance trunk route to Monmouth, but exposure of the falsehood resulted in collapse. In 1941, passenger trains stopped running on the line, leaving freight to struggle alone until 1957. At this bridge we crossed the River Monnow, or the Afon Monnow. This marks the national border between England and Wales, and we have passed from Herefordshire into Monmouthshire. This was Pandy Station. Nothing remains of the original station that once boasted a booking office, cloakroom and station master's house, destroyed by a fire in 1904. This was Llanfihangel Station. The platforms were staggered beneath the road bridge. The station is at the top of the Llanfihangel bank, which we now descend on a 1 in 82 gradient into Abergavenny. pass a Class 175 Coradia DMU. These trains are the most common seen on the Welsh Marches line, heading for destinations such as Manchester Piccadilly and Holyhead. Little remains of the former Abergavenny junction station. The junction appendage refers to the railway line to Bryn Mawr, constructed in September 1862 by the Merthyr Tredegar and Abergavenny Railway. The LNWR leased and operated the line in 1866, which itself was taken over by the London, Midland and Scottish Railway after the 1923 grouping. Decline in the local industry and the costs of working the line between Abergavenny and Merthyr led to the end of all passenger services in 1958. However, the goods trains fared better, accessing the Brecon Road goods yard until 1971, along with Abergavenny Junction Station. We've now arrived at Abergavenny. Notice that platform 1 is long enough to accommodate a train of 9 coaches, while platform 2 can only hold 4. The former trackbed of the freight avoiding line can be clearly seen to our left, passing underneath the redundant wrought iron lattice girder footbridge. From 1950 to 1968, this station had the suffix of Monmouth Road. The station is staffed during the daytime, with the ticket office open 7 days a week. Near enough all trains operated by Transport for Wales call here, with destinations in the north to Holyhead, Manchester and Chester, and south to Cardiff, Swansea, Carmarthen and Milford Haven. Abergavenny signal box interfaces with the box at Little Mill Junction. On the left is the A40 London to Fishguard trunk road. The former station building is now a private residence. Although the community is adjacent to the station, it was very small and could equally have been said to have served the larger village of Llangattock Usk. Here we cross the River Usk for the first of 3 times. It rises in headstreams in the Brecon Beacons National Park and flows for 78 miles before entering the Bristol Channel beyond Newport. Look carefully beyond the next approaching bridge and you can see the old station of Nantaderry. It hasn't seen a passenger since 1958. A southbound passenger train came off the tracks here on the 12th of November 1856. The reason was because a spring on the steam locomotive came free. 2 passengers died. It's miraculous that there weren't any more fatalities, as a northbound goods train plied into the wreckage. The train couldn't be stopped in time. This was Little Mill Junction. The stub is the remains of another cross-country line, the Colford-Monmouth Usk and Pontypool Railway. At 16 miles long, the line was opened in 1856 and closed in 1955, 1 year short of its centenary. However, a short section of the route continued to serve the Royal Ordnance Factory at Glascoed until 1993. We will shortly pass the island platform of Pontypool and New Inn. This was originally called Pontypool Road and contained more station buildings in the centre. For over 100 years the station was important and a key junction connecting the main line from Newport to the Midlands and North England and branch lines to Neath and Merthyr as well as Usk and Monmouth. At its peak, Pontypool Road once featured a 50-line marshalling yard included with an engine shed, goods shed and refuelling facilities. As the railways went into decline in the 1950s, one by one the once busy junction became little more than a memory. Lines to Usk and Monmouth closed in 1955 and the branches to Blaenavon and Merthyr closed in 1962, with the route to Neath following in 1964. In 1994, the station buildings were demolished and basic bus shelter style accommodation areas added. It was at the same time that the station was renamed to Pontrilas and New Inn. The Newport, Abergavenny and Hereford Railway once continued straight ahead, and we are now on our third railway, the Pontrilas, Cardiff and Newport Railway. The route was paralleled by the Monmouthshire Railway and Canal Company's line for much of its length into Newport. It was seen as unnecessary duplication to our line and was closed in 1962. Pass below the A4020 dual carriageway. This was where the third side of the triangle converged with the Newport, Abergavenny and Hereford at Panteg, renamed to Panteg and Griffithstown until its closure in 1962. The railway we are on opened by the Pontrilas, Cardiff and Newport Railway in 1874, promoted independently to relieve congestion on the heavily worked Eastern Valley Railway, the aforementioned Monmouthshire Railway's line. 2 years later the line was taken over by the GWR, and most long-distance passenger and goods traffic used this route. Only 10 miles long today, you would think that the building of this route would have been relatively straightforward. Well, in fact, it took 9 years. The reason was because the GWR, partners in the venture, was converting their main line from broad to standard gauge, an expensive job at the time. Work on the PCNR was halted until the broad gauge was gone. Here at this bridge, 300 yards north of Cwmbran, was the station at Pont Newydd, opened with the line and closing in 1958. The prefix lower was added to the station nameboards in 1925 to avoid confusion with the other station called Upper Pont Newydd on the Monmouthshire Railway. This is Cwmbran. The sizable Welsh town has a population today of 49,000, being designated a new town in 1949 to provide new employment opportunities in the southeastern portion of the South Wales coalfield. The station, however, only opened here in 1986. The old Monmouthshire Railway used to have a station called Cwmbran, which had opened in 1852 and closed in 1962. The station in 2008 was refurbished and officially opened by Hwyl Rhodri Morgan, the former First Minister of Wales. This was where the connection between the Monmouthshire Railway and our line at Llantarnam used to be. It had opened in 1878 and closed in 1962. The A4020 passes overhead again. From north of Cwmbran, the signalling of our line is now under the control of the Wales Rail Operating Centre, which was commissioned in 2010 and controls the Cardiff and Newport areas up to and beyond Port Talbot, and hopefully at some point Flint to Holyhead. This was the site of Pontrilas station. This bridge takes us over the Avon Lloyd. The two-arch bridge carries the B4236 Pontier Road. The line now curves almost 180 degrees from the southeasterly heading to the southwest in the direction of Cwmbran and Newport. This is the last closed station on the Welsh Marches line, Cwmbran, closed in 1962 to passengers and 1965 for all other traffic. The area is now used by a mixture of businesses such as a gym, MOT centre and veterinary clinic. The River Usk is getting a lot wider as it comes closer to its mouth near the Bristol Channel, and here we cross the river for a second time. This is the M4, the main motorway that connects London with Bristol and South Wales. For the first time on our journey, we encounter overhead catenary. This is Maindee North Junction, one part of a triangle with the South Wales Main Line. This is Maindee West Junction, the end of the Welsh Marches line, as we join the down main line of the South Wales Main Line. Now we cross the River Usk for the last time alongside the remains of the 14th century Newport Castle. We get the route indication for platform 2. Newport is still a substantial station with 4 platforms, and to our left are the 2 run-through lines that are normally used by freight trains. The footbridge at the country end of the platforms was added on this site in 2010, funded by the Welsh Assembly ahead of the Ryder Cup golf tournament that took place at the nearby Celtic Manor Resort. Newport Station is the 3rd busiest in Wales after Cardiff Central and Cardiff Queen Street, with nearly 2.71 million passengers a year either starting or finishing their journeys here. Much of the original station still survives, albeit now surrounded by many modern amenities. The M stands for Main. We enter the 770-yard long Newport New Tunnel. The old tunnel is the other bore to the left. These were the only tunnels provided on the South Wales Main Line. This is Gaya Junction, a triangular junction with the Ebble Valley Line. It was opened by the Monmouthshire Railway and Canal Company in 1855. Passenger services ended in 1962, but were restored to a new station at Ebble Vale Parkway in 2008, and since has been extended to Ebble Vale Town in 2015. Over to our far left we can see sidings and branch lines associated with the Alexander Docks. This is Ebu Junction, the second side of the triangle, and used by TfW services which run on an hourly basis from Cardiff Central. Services from Newport use the other side of the triangle and also operate hourly along the branch to as far as Cross Keys. The South Wales Main Line was opened in 1850 by the South Wales Railway Company, a GWR project in all but name. Construction of the line was overseen by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, laying the 7-foot broad gauge. The original intention of the line was to reach Fishguard, to agenda the Irish ferry and transatlantic trade. The railway, however, didn't make it to Fishguard for quite some time. Trains ran to Neyland, its western terminus, until the route to Fishguard opened in 1906. The broad gauge was converted to standard gauge in 1873, and after the grouping in 1923, the line remained in GWR ownership. Most recently was the electrification of the route from London to Cardiff, completed in January 2020. It had been proposed that the entire South Wales Main Line down to Swansea be electrified, but due to the cost of the project being astronomical, the project was indefinitely deferred. With the sun setting in the distance, a beautiful orange glow is seen from anywhere you look. This was Marshfield Station, a 1959 closure. Pass a GWR Class 158 DMU on an hourly service operating from Cardiff Central to Taunton. On the left we can see rail connections related with a rail freight container terminal at Wentloog, owned and operated by the Freightliner Group. Another advance warning reminds drivers of the 75 mph restriction ahead. Even though we are doing 75, intercity express trains can travel at 95 mph along here. This is the A4232. The Cwmbran River now flows beneath us. Lines on the far left are correlated with the Cardiff tidal yard. This is the final closed station on our journey today, Roath. Despite its name, it was located in the Splot area of the city. It was opened in 1899 and closed in 1917. We pass a transport for Wales Class 170 Turbostar DMU, operating on a service from Maesteg to Cheltenham Spa. We've now arrived in Cardiff, the Welsh capital, and even Europe's youngest capital city, only being proclaimed in 1955. The population is around the 367,000 mark, but before the 19th century, Cardiff was just a small town, growing in leaps and bounds, becoming a prominent port for coal when mining began in the region and nearby valleys. In a survey that was taken in 2017, it was discovered that Cardiff was the most popular destination for tourists in Wales, with 21.3 million visitors recorded. This bridge carries the lines to Cardiff Queen Street and the expanding valley lines to Merthyr Tydfil, Aberdare, Treherbert and Cwmbran, as well as the Cardiff Bay and Corriton lines. The last signal we pass gives us the route indicator for platform 4. Cardiff Central, opened in 1850 as plain Cardiff. It was enlarged in 1896, and in 1924 the station became Cardiff General, changing to Cardiff Central in 1973, which it has remained ever since. The busiest station in Wales, the station handles up to nearly 12.6 million passengers a year. Most of the train services at the station are local or suburban, operated by Transport for Wales, while intercity services are operated by Great Western Railway and Cross Country. Having set off from Holyhead at 11:33, the Premier service terminates on platform 4 at 16:15. The train will be taken out of passenger service to go to Canton Depot. The entire station, including the exterior, still retains much of its GWR character.